All right. Calling to order Historic Landmarks Commission, March 2nd, 2022. So let's start with the
Here
roll
you
call.
are. There we go.
Hi, Commissioner Drury.
Hello,
is that your roll call?
Chair Grumbine. Are we doing roll call already?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
All right.
We are broadcasting.
Oh my
We're
goodness.
live, so don't say anything.
Anything untoward? No, sir.
That's right. All right. So we have a roll call?
Yes, thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll go ahead and start the roll call. Chair Grumbine,
Present?
Vice Chair House.
Muted.
I am here.
There you go.
Thank you. Commissioner Butler,
Here.
Commissioner Dorden,
Here.
Commissioner Drury,
Here.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Here.
Commissioner Manuel,
Here.
and Commissioner Uli.
Present.
All right, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now let's go on to item A, public comment. Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for a public discussion.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair Grumbine and commissioners. So at this time, if any member of the public would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak and I will call on you. Okay, so I don't see any hands raised. And I did want to acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Sullivan Israel regarding Plaza DLG, which was distributed to the commission before this meeting. And with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. Okay, so with that, if there's no other public comment, we'll close public comment. Thank you for member of the public that did send that. A lot of work went into that and a lot of good information, so thank you. So on to closing public comment, on to item B, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of February 16th, 2022.
So moved.
We have a motion. All right, Commissioner Drury. And second?
Second.
All right, Vice Chair House. All right, under discussion, any edits? Changes? Happy? All right. Not hearing any edits. Let's go to a roll call vote.
All right, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Abstain.
Commissioner Manuel,
Yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I would observe that Commissioner Uli has risen to replace Commissioner Mahan as the other half of the Irish contingent.
Well, he's looking
Duly
extraordinarily
noted.
well dressed.
Yes.
I certainly appreciate that observation, but can report based on my, what do they call that DNA thing? There is no Irish in me, but
Oh, well.
I'm willing to play the part representing Mr. Mahan.
Excellent. Well, that way
Excellent.
Commissioner Drury will not be lonely.
Nope.
All right.
God forbid.
We have all the bases covered.
Yep.
Especially as we approach St. Patrick's Day in 2 weeks.
Yep.
All right. Okay,
Oh, my
on
goodness.
to less important, but necessary parts. So we're on to, oh wait, sorry, we had our vote. So we have item C now. Approval of the consent calendar for March 2nd, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by Commissioner Uli, second by Commissioner Drury. Report from staff and any other additional notes?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. So today we had 5 items on the consent calendar. Item A was continued or project design approval and continued 2 weeks. So it was going for project design approval. It was continued 2 weeks with 2 weeks with comments, and PCA findings were met. So project compatibility findings were met on that one. Item B, the item was continued 2 weeks with comments. And then item C was also continued 2 weeks with comments. Item D was also continued 2 weeks with comments. And then lastly, item E was final approval with comments. Thank you.
All right. Well, there's a lot of
Mr.
comments.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury.
Yeah,
Commissioner Drury.
there was a lot of letters to the editor, so to speak, about item A. Am I not mistaken?
Mr.
Right.
Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House. Can you fill us in?
Yes, in fact, there were a lot of letters, and I had some email correspondence with Ms. Kokinda, and it was decided that she would preface the meeting with some instruction to the people that wrote in about what the HLC's purview is here, and that there were very minor exterior changes, and so it was appropriate for it to go to consent. But otherwise, it was in conformance with the municipal code and all other requirements. So we had very little purview over it. I also advised them that though this might be called a final approval, which was the concern of some of them, that they'd have no other opportunity to provide input, it was only final approval of the design of the exterior, nor do we have any purview over what happens on the interior of the building. So I think there was only one person that spoke public comment. No, I guess there were 2. And I don't know if that addressed their concerns. They're probably frustrated that we couldn't do anything about it, but that's where that one stands.
So,
All right, thank you,
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair. Commissioner Drury.
may I so,
Yes,
so
please.
are therefore, I mean, there is I think probably a great deal of construction impact, noise and so on, to the Laguna Village senior center, those apartments. And so who would they go to, since we really don't have the purview to do anything about the noise of the construction and so on, who would they go to?
There is an ordinance limiting the hours of construction, so they would have to conform to that.
Okay.
And then there might be other issues at the building department that they could address to constrain problems.
Okay. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
They put a silencer on their jackhammers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're battery operated.
That's not possible. Just takes 10 times longer. All right, Commissioner Drury, are your questions
Yes. Thank you
satisfactorily
very much.
answered?
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, in that case, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote for approval of the consent calendar?
Yes, thank you. I'll start with Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Manuel,
Abstain.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbarn.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you. Vice Chair House.
a question for staff. Is it appropriate for Commissioner Manuel to just be specific on which items he recused himself from instead of just recusing from the entire consent calendar?
Vice Chair House, I don't think that's a bad idea. So Commissioner Manuel, could you just
Sure.
elaborate?
I recuse myself from the item D and E. The other three, I can confirm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you. And as someone who wasn't there at all, I confirm things all the time. So just it never stops us. No. All right. So we are done with item C. Let's go on to item D, announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals.
Mr. Chair.
All right, Commissioner Emanuel.
Yeah,
And then Vice Chair.
unsurprisingly, I have two recusals to make again. For item 1 and item 2. Item 1, I have a conflict of interest with the owner. Item 2, I have a conflict of interest with the applicant. So after subcommittee reports, I will leave the meeting.
You just try to get the record for the shortest meeting.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
No, it's okay. All right, Vice Chair House.
Though it seems like we have a very short agenda, I need to leave by 5:45.
Here.
And Commissioner Dordan.
I must leave by 6 p.m. today.
All right, so if
And
we're
Mr.
not out
Chair?
by then, I have failed everyone drastically. It's
Yeah.
running a tight meeting. All right, Commissioner, sorry.
Drury.
Drury.
Yeah, I want to announce that my mother passed away a week ago tonight
Oh,
at only 108 and a half years old. Actually, she was 5 weeks shy of 109, in her sleep, peacefully, quietly at home. So I
Sorry
don't
to
have
hear
the
that.
excuse.
Right.
You know, it's bittersweet because she did what she wanted to do. She needed to get out of this body, and which had failed her after only 108 years. And she passed away quietly in her sleep after 6 weeks of fasting and no medications, and
wow.
very gently and sweetly. So if I say that I have to go make dinner for my mother, that means I have to leave early for
We know
some
you're lying.
nefarious activity. But it's been a blessing to have her here. Having her here at home really something special.
Well, and I think she was blessed to have you as a son. You're a great son.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Steve. Yep. I felt like I did a good job.
And for us to be a great commission with you every other
Yes.
Wednesday, we got to share,
That's
what
right.
mom was eating,
That's
what mom was
right.
going to have for dinner on Wednesday.
Daily mom report.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you guys.
Oh, well, that's
Mr.
working.
Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Uli.
I'm available to 9 o'clock, so if the meeting runs late, I'm doing it. Because I don't have,
And you're
anything-
dressed for it too. But
don't
if you
have
start
anything
sipping
backed up
an
behind
orange
it, so-
liquid.
I'm
Yeah.
good to go to 9. On subcommittee reports, the designation subcommittee met. We considered one matter. There was a substantive discussion about the matter. We requested a number of revisions. We ultimately voted to support the nomination for landmark status so that it wouldn't have to come back to us. But we requested the nomination be updated before it reaches the full commission at some point in the near future. I don't know if Commissioner Dordan, Manuel, or Limvick want to chime in on any part of that nomination, but we'll see it, I don't know, a month or so, something like that.
Mr. Chair.
Any other notes from the other? All right, Vice Chair House.
Tomorrow morning, there is a meeting of the Plaza de la Guerra Surface Materials Subcommittee with Commissioner Drury and myself, along with a few members of the Advisory Commission, not the entire commission. And my understanding from Mr. Brad Hess is that we might have one additional meeting before we have a joint meeting of the HLC and the Advisory Committee.
All right. Thank you for keeping us up to date on that. And thank you both for your service on that.
You are welcome.
All right. Any other?
And what, excuse
announcements?
me for butting in. What time is that meeting, Mr. Commissioner Howes?
Oh, I think it's 9.
Okay.
Check your emails.
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'll make an announcement. So Commissioner Howes and I are also part of the Lot 3 subcommittee, Lot 3 Paseo. And I think we meet on the 10th of March
right.
at 11 a.m.
What time?
11.
Hey,
Good Lord.
no
I'm gonna
subcommittee
go
time
mute.
planning, calendar planning. All right, that's how we end up with meetings going till 9. All right, so any other announcements, requests, or actually subcommittee reports?
Yes, I,
blended into everything.
Mr. Chair, I have a report on
Okay.
the State Street Advisory Committee. First, I was unable to attend the meeting in full. I had to join about a little more than halfway through, so I have to go back and review the tape of the meeting to be fully informed. But the first part of the meeting that I missed was a update on the RFQ, which is out. And that was originally scheduled to be due on March 3rd. That has been extended to March 24. And I don't know, because I didn't attend the meeting when this was discussed, I'm not sure what the reason for that is, but my inclination is that it is the request is very involved, and I can assume that the respondents are concerned about that and need more time. There was a letter put out by the Santa Barbara Conservancy late in February, which I don't believe it was made available to the Landmarks Commission as such, but it would be informative if the Landmarks Commission could have it sent to them for their information. The project scope for the design is really quite inclusive and to a degree outside, in my opinion at least, outside the intent of providing a design solution for State Street, for the promenade. I mean, it includes things like, dealing with the homeless issue and dealing with housing and dealing with, maintenance and dealing with, a lot of things that are really beyond the planning, the intimate planning issue that we want to see, developed. So I'm not sure what's going to transpire in that. I mean, it's the housing. I mean, the issue of the homeless is probably not something which can be solved by this design team. And the city hasn't been able to solve it in 20 or 30 years. So why do we expect the design team to solve it? It's really a police issue. But anyway, it now is on due March 24th, and we'll know more about that then. The balance of the meeting centered around a discussion about the economic viability of retail and commercial in the downtown area and the challenges and opportunities ahead for revitalization. And there was an outside panel of people that were part of a discussion, presentation and discussion. So that's an ongoing discussion, and I think we'll get more involved in some of those subjects that were brought up down the road. But we don't meet again until the end of this month. So that was my report.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
thank you for that. Vice Chair House.
on behalf of the Santa Barbara Conservancy, my thought is that I will forward that letter to HLC staff, and they can do with it as they deem appropriate to post it as public comment or send copies of it to the HLC.
Thank you, Vice Chair House.
Thank you.
Sounds like the right move.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Lenvick, for reporting back. And I do expect you to have more faith in architects and planners to solve all problems. So even the ones the police can't solve. So you got to have more faith.
The maximum budget, the maximum dollar proposal that will be accepted by the city, I believe, is $800,000.
That's correct.
So you might say, well, certainly we could solve a lot of problems for $800,000. Yeah, I think that money is going to go pretty fast with the laundry list that the staff has requested the designers respond to. So
I think sea level
right.
rise could eat that up in its entirety.
We can solve it all.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for keeping us up to speed on that as well. And then as well, I know Commissioner Jordan, you are the substitute as well. And if there is any future issues as well, Commissioner Lenvick, I know that it's very important that HLC is at the table as these discussions go forward. So I'm sure you guys will both be able to keep us up to speed and keep them up to speed as well in terms of HLC concerns.
My absence was an emergency that happened really an hour before.
Sure.
And I was able to get the alternate involved. So
no worries.
At least you didn't have to go feed your mom.
All right. So any
Mr.
other
Chair.
subcommittee reports?
Yes, Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jordan.
I can report on the Objective Design Standards meeting. This group had two recent meetings, February the 11th with Opticus, the outside consultant, and February 25th, which was just the staff and local members. These were interim meetings focusing on creating a set of architectural styles and then on defining the distinctive features of each so that they can be incorporated potentially into objective design standards. It's all still interim.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your report on that. Hopefully it'll be a great project. Okay, any other reports, announcements, etc.? All right, in that case, let's move on to item 1, agenda. It is 1221 Anacapa Street. This is continued item for final approval. A proposal to construct a new 500 kilowatt solar photovoltaic system on the upper level of city-owned Granada Garage located in EPV that will also function as a parking canopy. The superstructure will have a maximum height of 46'11" and consists of painted high-strength steel columns and beams with galvanized light gauge steel purlins on top to support and attach to the solar modules. The project also includes the removal of existing rooftop light poles and 13 small olive trees in pots to allow for new solar photovoltaic canopy. Planning Commission approved a height exception on December 10th, 2020, allowing the project to exceed the standard height limit of 45 feet in the commercial general high density residential priority housing overlay zone. So final approval is requested. Project requires substantial conformance to the plans that were granted project design approval on September 15th, 2021. Project was last reviewed December 22nd, 2021. And so welcome. welcome to the applicants, and then perhaps we can go over the notes from the previous meeting or the findings, and then we can go on to your presentation, which will have 15 minutes to present. And you don't have to take all the 15 minutes, but if you want it. All right.
I think it was passed. Oh, there it is.
Okay. So this was, let's see, motion was to continue indefinitely with the following comments. Explore the possibility of providing columns at the northwest and southeast locations by the stairwells. However, a column at the northeast is not necessary. Okay. As number two, as far as the progress of the detailing, the tubular steel members shall have steel caps on them, and the W18 that terminates at the Anapamoo Street elevation shall either be capped or abut the rear side of the column. 3, the commission approves the color named anonymous for all of the trellis and steel framework members, and the underside of the solar panels is acceptable without any additional treatment. 4, the project may be ready for final approval at the next meeting, as long as they provide the additional detailing such as lighting. The motion was by House, second by Uli, 7-0-0. Manuel and Drury were absent. The motion carried. All right. So with that, if you would make sure to answer or tell us how you answered all of the various points, as well as including the last point, which is sort of all other pieces needed for final approval. All right, so welcome.
Very
You
good.
could introduce yourself and your team.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Grumbine and fellow commissioners. Ed Devasene with DMHA Architecture with Henry Lenny Architect. I'm not sure if he's been elevated as a presenter, and Alelia Parento as well with the City of Santa Barbara.
We're promoting them right now. Thank you. It'll be just a moment.
And I don't believe I see Miss Parenthow. So.
Great. Well, I'll go ahead and get us started and try to get you out of here before 9 p.m. when Commissioner Uli is no longer available. All right, so yeah, thank you, commissioners and ad hoc members that are present and were involved, Commissioner Mahan, for all the effort. It's been quite a number of meetings and a lot of time understanding fully this proposed project and how it relates to not only the parking structure, but the neighborhood as well. So it's been a great effort, and we appreciate the help to really dig in with us. So we're really here to tie up any loose ends and dot the I's and cross the T's. So we now have a fully engineered structure, and those plans, I'll walk you through that. You saw a progress set last time, and no surprises or significant changes. So let's just dive right into it. So let's move to the next page. Again, just our demo plan showing we're eliminating the planters and lights on the roof deck. No changes here. Next page. And here, this is probably one of our most kind of detailed, broad information pages. So let's zoom in there and take a closer look. So as you are aware, Anacapa Street kind of to the top right of the page, Anapamoo Street to the bottom right, the Granada Theater to the left, and Victoria Street and the commercial structures along Victoria on the left-hand side. So we spent most of our time really looking at Anapamoo Street side, bottom right. And so let's just walk through a couple of the things that we're highlighting here. The structural sizes changed. So before we had our main blue girders as W18s, they've now been reduced actually to W14s. And where we had the W10s, beams on top crossing, those have grown to be W12. So in all, overall, things got a little tighter, but stayed still pretty much the same type of components. We're really just fine tuning them through the engineering calcs. And also our columns changed to W14. So now the major members are W14s and the columns as well are, actually they're 14 tubes. So we'll see that in the details. So those are a couple things that are noted there. We also have, you know, our higher level of detail along the Anapamu Street edge. We'll get into the zoomed in detail of that. Other things to point out here are the light fixtures. This is the only page where you're going to see the light fixtures. You can zoom in a little tighter just to the colored area. There's 21 light fixtures. It's the same fixture spec you've seen, the square LED type. And they run pretty much in the drive aisles and over kind of the parking bays in the middle. So they're never really closer than 30 feet from a building edge. And this was one of the concerns over the previous hearings, is just if they're seen that they be shielded. So I just wanted to show you the locations here so you guys understand where they are. And let's move to the next page where we can get into a little more detail. Again, these are just the elevations more than anything, just calling out the colors that we've already been through. The anonymous color, which you saw last time, and we have the color chip in here for the main steel structure. The purlins that hold the solar panels themselves are galvanized. Let's continue, next page. Again, the other views, the other elevation views, nothing more to add. Again, just dotting I's and crossing T's. Next page. Here is, again, the light fixture cut sheet, the RAB fixture. We do a 3000 Kelvin, keep it on the warm side. And yeah, not too much to look at. So if you have questions, we can come back to this, but it's the same fixture you've seen for a numerous presentations. Next page. Now we can move into the engineering drawings. Here again are the same solar kind of typical mounting details you've seen before, so I'll skip over these. You can always come back to it. It's mostly how the Z purlins connect to the panels themselves. Next page. Okay, so here we're getting into this structural framing plan itself. So let's go ahead and zoom in to the plan itself. Actually, let's go upper left-hand corner. Why don't we just kind of go quadrant by quadrant. So the first thing I'll start off with is here you can see the member sizes that changed. The main girders, again, that sit on top of the columns are W1490s, previously 18s. And then the crossing ones on top, which you'll see in the details, are the W12. So on the left hand, upper left hand, we have a column called a 1D, labeled 1D. And this is where we did pick up in this northwest corner a cantilevered beam. So the commission was split on their recommendation of whether we did or didn't pick these up. So in this case, we did pick up this one. It is going to impact an accessible parking space, but next to it is a regular space that we can shift over and accommodate that as we go through the building department process. So I just want to point out that column that was added. In the upper right-hand corner, we have eliminated some of the cantilevered structural elements there and pulled the array back slightly, and we did not introduce a column in this corner. So you can see the upper right-hand corner dimension off the 1C column off the Victoria side. The W12s are extending out 10 feet on either side. These are the smaller beams on top. Let's move to the bottom right-hand corner of the next, on this page, get to the next quadrant. And here again, bottom right-hand corner 1D, we introduced a column which will reduce one parking space. So we stopped it in that parking field. We did not carry it all the way as to not impact the accessible stall that's in that corner. So this will just affect one standard stall. And again, so that picks up that W14 girder. And then to the bottom of the page, you'll see a little bit of the design and resolution here of the Anapamu side. So it's really, as we've discussed, the 14s as they come in, they hit on the columns. We'll look at that detail. And then we have item 2C, kind of where the beams aren't, or where the false columns are called out. That will just, that create that rhythm, that more traditional rhythm of the verticals along Anapamu. But other than that, no real changes here. Everything is as we had looked at together. So let's continue to the next page where we can get into the detail. So here is the upper level of the structure, and you can see how the more detailed components come together. So on the left, you can see the full field, just where the panels sit. Let's zoom into the bottom portion, and then we'll go to the detail on the right. So here again, you can see the overall array and how it's lining up with the main structure below. I'll just point out a couple things that we talked about. In the lower left corner there, we extended the array towards the main stair. Those 12 modules are flattened out. And then also on the south portion, they're flattened out. So let's take a look at that detail. There's nothing else really to highlight. The array is, for the most part, what you've seen, other than the upper corner where we pulled some back. So looking more closely here at the detail. All right, so if you recall, what we did is we had at the top of this section is where the W12 sits, and on top of that is where we place, you can see the call out, where's the call out? Upper right-hand corner, 6x8 rafters with the welded caps. So the ones that run down and up and down there.
Hold on, if you could hold on for a second. So we're looking at a plan, and I think you said section, and I'm not tracking your call out.
The W
Say that again?
section, yeah, the W section. So the W12, that is the top edge of this flattened portion. That's what I'm talking about. So the very top note there is what I'm referring to.
So hold on one sec, make sure that. So you're talking about this note right here?
That one and the one to the left. Just after the dimension there.
Oh, W section, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just,
I wasn't seeing
to,
that. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Just to orient us on the main members. So that's, these 6x8s are spanning from that W12, and that goes across to where the next W12 is that sits on top of the columns at the Anapamu edge. So again, it's the same design you've seen, and then it cantilevers out across the Anapamu edge. And then along the south edge there, we have the 4x4 tube steel. Again, you can see the note at the bottom, the 12 inches on center, leaving an 8-inch cap. And you can see the note there where we have the welded end caps as well. And those overhang to the sides, 18 inches per the note. Okay, so that is how that kind of all came together, pretty close to what we'd all seen before. So let's move to the next page. And now we're just really getting into the details. So upper left-hand corner, let's start with one of the comments from the minutes last time. So this is where that column and the girder come together on the Anapamu edge. So here you can see what we've done is we've extended the column all the way up to the underside of the W12, and the W14 girder it dies into the column. So that's how we've dealt with this one. And then there's a through plate to make the connection and some welds and things. So that's how along, and this made the most sense because where the false columns are attached, they're gonna attach to the bottom of those W12s that run parallel with the Anapamu Street. So that's that detail. The other typical detail is two to the right, detail number 4. This is the section of that plan view we just looked at. So here we have our 6x8 with the welded ends, or capped ends. And then again, they're about just under 3'8" typical. That's how it worked out with the module attachment. And the rest of the details here on this page are just the typical connections for the rest of the structure. So if you want to see those in question, or we can go through these in more detail. Next page. Let's zoom into the bottom. All this is the next level of detail at the area again we just looked at, showing how the solar panels will connect on top of those the 6x8 tube rafters. And then on the bottom left, you can see the 4x4 lattice and how they're just getting welded at 12 inches on center. So again, it's just pulling together all of the detailing for all the components we've been speaking about for some time. And again, the rest of it is just how the solar panels themselves connect to the structure. So next page. New details of how the column base is just attached to the structure. Next page. Same, next page. Here's a couple sectional views. These are really what you've seen. So, but let's just look at it because this will close the loop on the whole thing. Bottom left-hand corner, let's start there. So along Anapamu, again, this is how that all comes together, where we have the 4-inch square lattice. Again, they've got the notes called out for the welded end plates, the closed ends, and the 6x8s that are extending out. That looks like about a 4'4" from the center of the E column W section of that W12. So that'll overhang the existing parapet wall. I don't have a dimension on exactly where the column landing is going to hit, but it's going to be, looks like around a foot or so. Beyond that, nothing else. The only other thing to highlight here is the columns where you can see the 14-inch square is called out. And that's pretty much it in that view. So let's scoot up the page a little onto the Granada side, upper left. And so here's the section. So we're a ways off the Granada edge. We pulled back the cantilever a couple meetings ago. It was just to kind of soften the look of the structure. So really this is just the detailing there. Again, it's consistent with what you've seen, no real changes here. And the planters will be removed. This is just a note to just tell the contractor to do so. And just I'll scoot to the right a little bit here. So this just shows the section through the entire structure. And the only thing I want to point out here is the batteries were an added component to the project fairly recently, and they're going to live down at the basement level. So this just shows you where that is. So next page. This is a view of that basement level 2 where the batteries would be located and planned. Next page. More details on the batteries. Next page. Here's our color chip that we had at the site walk. The Sherwin-Williams 7046 anonymous color. Next page. And then we just get into the views. So if you want to look at these, we can. They're really what you've been seeing, but this is now the complete package. So the bottom view is really how the final packages come together. In the last design, there weren't a lot of revisions, is the one in the middle. So this is, again, from Anapamu. Let's go to the next page. We'll just flip through these fairly quickly. Again, a little farther away from the Anapamu side. Let's zoom into that bottom view because this kind of showed those portions where we really spent a lot of time with the commission to flatten out the more visible portions. And I also want to point out this here as well. You can get a good shot really looking deeply into the structure. You really can't see where those light fixtures are. They're so far back, about 30 feet from the edges again, in those drive aisles. That's another thing I wanted to point out in this view. Next page. At the corner of Anapamu and Anacapa, it's really not visible. Next page. Continuing up the street, looking back down Anacapa on the bottom view. Again, the array is pulled back and not visible. Next page, continue. on the upper structure, here you can just see how everything kind of completed out with the final engineering on the bottom view. Next page. And then again, the view from the the courthouse tower at the bottom view. Again, from this vantage point, any refinements we made you're not really going to see them. So next page. Again, from the Granada parking, because we're pulled back from this edge, no, you're not really seeing the array. And I think we got one more of our view sims here. The Victoria side on the bottom, you can see how the final design laid in. So still slightly visible from this point of view. Next page. This is just a section of that flattened area that's most visible from Anapamu, just the final kind of 3D view of that. Next page. We added a new view. So this is, if you were flying up above the theater and away, maybe you're over the museum at this point. Here's what the final project looks like with the array kind of completed out. So different vantage point than you've seen. And that, I believe, is, yes, that answers all the questions and completes everything we had to present. So Henry's here if you have any questions. I am as well. So if you've got anything we want to dive into any more deeply now that we have the construction documents, happy to do so. So thank you again, Commission, for the time to help us get it refined and dialed in.
All right, great, thank you. So if that completes your presentation, then let's go on to public comment on this topic, right, on this project. So if any member of the public wishing to comment on this, please click on the raise hand icon, and you'll need to unmute yourself with the unmute button, and then you'll have 2 minutes to comment on this project.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine and Commissioners. So at this time, I don't see any hands raised for item 1, and we did not receive any written correspondence. So with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you. So I'll close public comment and on to the Commission for questions. Any questions from commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
Hopefully I can make sense of my notes here. Well, let's go to PDF page 8. And 2C, what would that, oh yeah, okay, the tag on those various places in the document, it says column sizes per plan, but I don't think I've ever seen 2C and 4B called out as to size. And if we zoom in on that lower section, it sure looks to me like the 2C columns are smaller than the 4B columns. So what is the deal with that?
All right. Vicente or Mr.
I'm muted. Okay, let's try that again. Chair Grumbine and Vice Chair House. They are the same, actually. The 2C, it looks a little different because they grade them out, but you're kind of seeing behind the base plate, but the column itself is intended to be the same, the 14-inch column.
Can you tell me where on the plan it would say that they're the same size?
I looked for it, and the detail for the false column and the connections is not in this set.
Okay.
But the intention is that it would be the same W14, or sorry.
Well, let's just keep that as a comment. Yeah. Let's see. Well, I guess let's go to, well, I have, oh, okay, PDF page 11. Okay, I guess I have a couple questions here. On that detail 6 at the lower right, I'm not totally sure where that is, but beyond what's labeled as solar panels, the Latias would be beyond that. Flush bottom with the solar panels, is that right?
Let's see here.
Let me just explain what my concern is. And I think I could see it from the very last illustration on sheet 27, the aerial view, that the wide flange beam barely extends beyond the, zoom into that lower left corner of the trellis part. Yeah, this would address two things I want to, well, it's more of a comment, but you have a very minimal overhang of those Latias past the last beam they're resting on, as well as the 8x6 or
Are you talking about
6x8.
here? That side?
No. The group of Latias that are the trellis element. Right, let's see, that's my cursor.
Right here?
Right there. Okay, so the Latias have hardly any, if any, overhang, and nor does the beam that they're resting on extend beyond the outer Latia. But I'm sorry, that's more of a comment. I mean,
so I guess to turn it into a question, and actually, could you zoom in a little bit more? Just so I'm making sure we're understanding all the drawings, right? So, yeah. So are you asking, is this little portion right there, where they're overhanging just a little smidge, or how much is that overhanging?
Yeah, and that's the previous detail I had called out. It seemed like that might be partially an illustration of that.
Okay, and then you're also talking about this being overhang right here as well.
No, not that one. Not that one. It would be all the 6x8s that are at what, 4 feet on center or something. And
so this one here?
Yeah. Exactly. So can you show us a plan view? Can you show us a plan view or detail view that dimensions how what those overhangs are?
Certainly, Chair Grumbine, Vice Chair House. Let's turn to PDF page 9. And I will caution the 3D views are not 100% in line with the engineered. It's really intended to look at the major issues. Not all the detailing was carried through. So at the bottom of the page, let's zoom in a little tighter there, where we have this lowered section. And there you can see the call out on either side. The Latias, here's why I mention it, Vice Chair House. The Latias are intended to extend 18 inches past.
Okay, good.
6x8, yes. So
and how about the?
Okay, and you're seeing that there, right?
Yeah,
correct.
And how about the setback from the end of the 6x8s to the first Latia? I think somewhere there's a center line dimension, but it was pretty minuscule.
Yeah, let's track back through there. I've got my own opened on mine. Let me see if we have the end condition detailed. I know that page 11 has a lot of this detail, but it didn't pick up the very end. And let me see if I have a dimension on it on page 14. No, we just have the typical dimension, but the dimension of where the first Latia starts relative to the edge of that 6x8 is not called out.
Okay.
Can you zoom in on the detail 7 there, the bottom left corner? I just want to make sure that we're all talking about the same thing. Were you asking Commissioner House where this one is?
Well, no, that's not. No, it would be the other end, but this is a truncated detail. That doesn't represent the very outer edge of the trellis. So,
correct.
And I don't know if there is a detail that shows that.
Okay, and then in plan, just so that we're again all talking about the same thing, because I keep getting it wrong. So let's make sure that that we're understanding it. So in plan, what you're asking for, if we can go to a plan view and then just make sure we're,
Actually, before we go to
Talking
the
about
plan view on this detail 6, if I understand correctly, instead of that 6-inch dimension at the end, that should be an 18-inch dimension. Because that's the,
Which 6-inch dimension?
on the left end there.
that one.
Yeah.
No, that's
No, no,
the-
that's
what-
the different one.
let's
Let's go in plan and maybe look at that.
Well, we can zoom in here. Let's look at this a little more closely. What's throwing it off is the scale in detail 6 is not the same as the scale in detail 7. That's what's throwing us off.
No, I understand that, but I mean, still that dimension of 6 inches concerns me. So it would be good to see on plan what that's referring.
Where that is.
I
Yeah,
can
so
show you,
let's look in
correct. I
plan.
can show you where that is in plan.
Okay.
So let's find that page. Best page for that is probably going to be the big page again.
Because these detail numbers don't really seem to reference to something on the plan. They're just kind of a page of miscellaneous details.
So let's go to page 9. Bottom right hand, the enlarged plan there again. And so let's go to the bottom right hand portion because this is showing, again, it's truncated, showing the right half of the flattened portion, not the left. So if you zoom in to all the way to the bottom right hand corner, the 6-inch dimension would be referring to the last 6x8 coming down the page.
I see.
And it would be overhanging the W12 that's over the column.
Right.
That's the location. So that 6-inch
Okay.
dimension is the W8 to the column, sorry, excuse me, to the W12 beam that sits on top of the column. And then the latias is 18 inches. So the 6x8 is right. I guess the other would say is the W12 extends 6 inches past the 6x8.
Okay.
And the latias is 18.
So just to short circuit a little bit here, because I think this is where Commissioner Fleischer House is going, which is where I wanted to know as well. And so even if he doesn't, what is this dimension? Do we have this dimension anywhere that I just marked up? The overhang this way, and then you did dimension as 18 inches and you showed us where that was right
Correct.
here, correct? So, okay, so that was shown as 18 inches. And then the question is, how about the other one? Do you have it shown anywhere?
Chair Grumbine, no, that one is not dimensioned in the details.
Okay. All right. So there's, okay, thank you. That, I think gives us.
That's
the
it for my
info. Any other
questions for now.
questions, Vice Chair House?
No, that's it for
Okay.
now.
Other questions from the commission?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
All right.
Have the view go to the section on sheet S 5.0, section 2, S 5.0. And go back, yeah. Yeah, enlarge that bottom section there. No, the one to the big one, the main section. I look at that and I see the my body is in the way here.
Can't help you with that.
Yeah.
The on the right side, the column and the beam and the sub-beam are shown one way, and on the left side, it's shown differently. And I'm having trouble when I look at the details, the enlargement, wondering if what's going on. I don't understand, particularly the left end where the trellis structure is. I don't understand why that is different than the other end.
All right, Commissioner Lennox, are you saying, why is this different than this?
Yeah.
Are they different?
Yeah, because we have flat panels at that left detail. So it's different than the rest of the structure.
The beam that is, I guess it's a,
Can we zoom in a little more on the
yeah,
on the left? Let's just say first.
that beam is not supported, is only supported at the columns.
This beam here,
Yes,
the
yes.
side beam.
That's what,
Okay.
that's a question statement, only supported at the columns. And it's a huge, great span then. Am I right or wrong? I just don't understand why there was I don't understand why we don't have a.
As I'm understanding it, is that the false column and column mix? Is that what that is? Am I on the right grid line?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Lenvik,
Yeah.
let's walk through this. Let's start on page 8,
Okay.
and I'll walk you through it. Happy to do so. So let's zoom out. So at the bottom of the page, it was that left-hand side.
Yep.
So that's the detailed 10. We're going to go to that 10 on 4.0 in just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And at the top, let's look at the top on the Victoria Street side. It is detailed differently, and we can look at that detail. So that's detail 3. So let's go ahead to move to page S40, and we can see the difference of the detail. Okay, so let's start with 10, upper left-hand corner. And again, this was one of the ones that was critical and the commission had commented on. So here you can see the column goes all the way up to the W12 on top, and then the W14 girder connects to it with a through plate connection, as opposed to sitting on top of the column. So that's how this one was detailed. Any questions on this one?
No, I understand that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then let's look at the other one, bottom right-hand corner of this sheet, detail 3. And you can see the difference on the Victoria side. So here they detailed it differently, where it did extend over the top of the column, and you can see how they're connecting it with a bottom plate in the bolts, which is why it extends past the column. So that's the difference of the two, and it would be good to get commentary from the commission on these two details if you have any comments on these. But
Well,
I did want to show, I did want to clarify that they are detailed different.
My preference would
Okay,
be,
so just
my preference would be that detail could be on the other end as well.
before we hold on, before we get into so I guess you can turn it into a question: is can that detail be on the other end as well? But just so we're all clear, what you're saying is this: if you look at the face of this, you're seeing an I-beam. When you look on the other side of this, right? You're seeing an I.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And then this is a tube.
Correct.
So this is a square basically going up. And then so the question is, do we want to see when this goes up here? The other option shows it going up all the way through as the tube going all the way through, and an I-beam dying against the side of it, right here, right?
And Mr.
Okay,
Chair,
good. Yeah, Vice Chair House.
the condition at the Anapamu side is what we requested in the minutes at the last meeting, is that it was the W18 at the time, now it's the W14, that it abut the backside of the square
Yeah,
column.
I remember we did have that conversation of it, if it's running into the side of it.
But it would seem
Okay.
like there would be a preferable detail at this end too.
Okay, so let's get into that in the comment part, but let's
Yeah.
make sure we're all understanding what we're at, and let's keep
Right, so
asking the questions until we,
I have one other question of curiosity.
okay? Right.
You've added battery storage in the basement, and you have been able to get rid of 4 or 5 parking spaces in that process. So parking isn't a problem apparently in the basement. And that's a question. And the other question, part of that is, you don't have a problem exiting into a stairwell adjacent to those batteries. A question, code question. Just curiosity. Not that I, whatever.
Okay, so to the applicant to satisfy Commissioner Lenvick's curiosity.
Sure, Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Lenvick, to the best of my ability. I do not believe the exit stairwell is at that location. It's on the opposite corner.
Okay.
And I think it's the northwest corner and the southeast corner, if I recall correctly, at this level.
Mhm.
And yes, I don't know if the broader team has had the discussions with broader public works about the parking impacts, both for the battery and the columns. I'm not sure if that's happened yet. So,
So basically parking's finding out about this real time.
Yeah, I can't speak to it, unfortunately, but I know we've been talking about it.
Mr. Grumbine and the commission, this is Lelia Parento with the city. No, the parking team is not finding out about this real time, but we are balancing resilience priorities in the city by installing the batteries in an area out of the commission's purview. And we've had to make some tough decisions with that. We've tried to accommodate the rooftop solar as best we can without losing, critical parking as well. And in the balance of the project, this has been the least impactful way that we can meet both the resiliency goals and the goals of the commission.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions? I had two others. One was the lights. So the lights from that are lighting the drive aisle. You showed us the images from the SketchUp model from the street. I don't remember what page it is. And it seems like from those views you can't see the lights, but I want to make sure first of all lights were put in the model, and that it's not just because they're really far away and light things that we can't see them. Is there, and obviously like a section study would show that, would show your view, whether you could see them or not. They don't seem like you could see them, but I just wanted to confirm that the model has the lights in them and that they would be visible if you could actually see them in the model. They would be showing up in what we're looking at.
Chair Grumbine, yeah. So can we turn to, let's take a look at page 22. And the short answer is no. The model does not have the light. I was referring more to visually what you could see, and that's why the first plan we showed was most important. So zoom in closely to the lower page here. So if I were a light, that's why I want to look at this with you all. I would be located in the middle of the drive aisle, and you can see the number of structural elements that might be conflicting with the lights, or might be, because they're going to be up at the W12 level. Yeah, so they may be obscured by the structure itself. So when we were talking about this as a team and looking at it, what we are proposing, because they're so inward, I don't think you're going to see them. And that's why I think that view that we looked at, let's go back to it. Let's find the right page number here. Let's try page 19. So if you cross-reference this back with the second plan of the lighting locations that we looked at, I don't believe they're going to be visible. So really, I think the way to best handle it is once it's constructed, and if there's areas that are peeking out, I think it would be easy enough to walk around the structure, and we could have a detail where they could conceal or have a little sheet metal, shroud that can be attached where it might be sneaking through the structure. It's really hard with all the different pieces and parts to see if it'd be visible from around the structure. So that's how we've been thinking about it. Obviously, it's up to the commission whether that's satisfactory enough to get that kind of note in there that we look at it once it's installed. But that's at least our thinking process, so the commission's aware of how we're approaching it.
Okay. All right. And then the other question I had was a color question. You can just stay here. the previous design and then this, the coloration of the model, and obviously it's just coloration of the model. Was the previous one not colored? Was it colored differently? Is that what we're seeing? Or are they meant to be the same coloration and it's just the way the model's rendered?
I think it's the way the color, it's rendered. Every time I get another
I'm noticing
set,
the palm trees look different and
Correct.
I wanted to make sure, and I thought that the color was part of the last one that we had talked about. So I just want to make sure that this is just a rendering thing and not a actual change that we weren't, that we weren't really reviewing. So, okay.
Chair Grumbine, yeah, I think you can see in the images, yes, there's some rendering changes there that aren't intended to be color changes to the building or the trellis structure and even the trees.
Okay.
So I picked up on the same thing.
Okay. All right. That's it for my questions. Any other questions? All right. In that case, let's go to comments. This is before us for final approval. If the commission is feeling that is the case.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Discussion, Vice Chair Howe.
Okay, if we go to PDF page 14. And at the lower left, that detail 4, that's a good illustration of what we were talking about before and the relationship of that outer latia to the end of the 6x8. And I think that a 6x8 should be extended, another 8 inches to a foot, something like that. That's my opinion. And also, I prefer the look of the W14 abutting the back of the square column. So my preference would be to do the same thing at the Victoria Street end.
Right there.
Even though you don't see much of it, it's right on the edge and it's the part that's sticking up above the parapet. So that would be my preference. I think if we scan over to the right side of this page, I think there was a detail of that connection over there. Yeah, so if we could look at that. And actually that's not the same as the detail because the detail shows the W14 just overhanging by a couple inches, the steel column. And this shows something more credible as an overhang. But once again, it doesn't have a cap plate on it. So it's just the edge of an I-beam. So anyway, that's my comments on that. My primary comments are on the lighting. As you know, I have expressed concern every time we've seen this, and some others have expressed concern also asking questions about whether they're shielded. If we go to page 6, and zoom in on that, it's just really hard to get a read on what part of that fixture is illuminated and how it looks lit up. So I went to their website and I requested staff to put a couple different PDFs up for you to view. So if we go to the lighting number 1, there we go. So this fixture, that perimeter is illuminated as well as the interior of the fixture puts the primary downlight component out, but that perimeter is providing 20% uplight. So what it's doing is lighting the ceiling. If you could scroll down and we could look some other interior views of a garage, that's what it's doing. It's putting a pool of light on the ceiling, which, in a parking garage like this, you don't want it to feel cave-like. So, there's a valid purpose for that. If we could go to lighting PDF 2, this is the same manufacturer and it is their other garage model. It comes in 2 models. One has an uplight component, which you see in the lower right, or you can order it without that uplight component. So, and on that picture in the left, that shows you where the sensor is integrated into the fixture, which is another question I'll ask about. But if we could scroll down, I think there are some pictures of it installed, maybe not. No, not really. But this fixture just puts light down on the drive aisles and does not light the ceiling. So my big concern is I don't want to see the ceiling lit. That's a big deal for me. I don't think there's any need for it. And considering that the undersides of the solar panels are white, I think it would be quite obvious, the illumination of these things on the ceiling. There'd be lots of light leak coming out here and there. And I don't think it's necessary to make sheet metal shrouds to address it in a, hit or miss fashion. Also, if we go back to page 6 of the plans, it was represented that there'll be 3000 K, but in that lower PDF page there you go. In the specifying matrix there, the color temperature is not specified there. So that would be even worse if these ended up being 5000 K. So that needs to be on the plans that these are 3000 K. And WS, let's see, that's, okay, it has the multi-level motion sensor. I just want to confirm that I'm understanding this correctly. There's another city parking garage, the one clearest to, I have to get out of the habit of calling it the Paradise. Now it's La Paloma, the one catter corner from there. I walked through that the other day, and as you enter a drive aisle, the lights go up to full illumination. So I think that's a preferable thing for this installation, that they are for sure dimmed except when somebody is in the drive aisle, and then they go up to their higher level. So that is my concern about the lighting. I don't think these fixtures are acceptable, and I wouldn't vote to approve them.
All right. Other comments? And also to the commissioners, if you would also weigh in on the beam and maybe Vice Chair House, you can continue this, the beam end condition and what your preference is, because we're seeing the two different ones, whether your preference is to change that portion as well. Yeah. Vice Chair House, did you want to throw your 2 cents in on that?
Oh, well, I thought
before we move on to another commission.
You mean in terms of abutting the beam versus sitting or abutting the column? Yeah, my preference is to abut the column, because that would be consistent with what we requested last time, and I think it looks better.
All right. And all right, who wants to go next? All at once.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury?
Yes, I would agree with Commissioner House. We're very well thought out. They're not exactly minor details, but they are important. And the uplighting, I guess there's, with the color of the undercolor of the panels, you're worried about spillage. Is that correct, Commissioner House?
Yeah, it's a distraction when you're in the vicinity of the courthouse to see the glowing underside of the solar panels, which I just don't see as necessary. And considering on the Anapamu side, the fixtures are set 30 feet back, that kind of negates an argument that we need the reflected light off the ceiling to make it safe if there are no fixtures for that 30 feet. So I think
I agree with you there. And also your comment on the beams. I think that extending them, did you say 8 inches?
Yeah, on detail 4 on this page.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with those comments. Thank you.
All right. Who wants to go next? All right. Well, I'll jump in with it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a lot of comments. I think it seems like that the key things that we had from last time were the lighting, which has we've just been discussing, the column of adding the columns in and placement, and that seems to they were able to fit it in whatever the 1 or 2 instances. And those were the most critical for sure in my mind. And they were also able to shorten the overhang, which I think was like 12 feet last time, and there's 10 feet. So they were able to shorten it so that the last corner is not as offensive as well as the cantilevering overhang. And so those all made sense to me in terms of the adjustments since last time. And it's sounding like the 8-inch extension of past the Latias on detail 4 is the other one to get it to have sort of proper overhang. And then the overhang that they show of 18 inches of the Latias is also appropriate as they show in some of their in plan. So that I think all makes sense. The color we had already approved, so that all makes sense. And so I think the main aspect right now, sticking point wise, is the lights and the light spec and how that's going to be treated. So that's seemingly where it's landing. I guess there is a certain component of it, which is, even if they picked lights that are not uplighting, and like the light that you showed Vice Chair House, I would still be concerned that you could see it as a hot spot from below. And I would still want that additional exercise of making sure you can't see it from the sidewalk across, and that they're shrouded if you do still catch but I totally agree with you. Uplighting the ceiling will make it even harder or worse, and you'll end up shrouding everything, which will take away all the effect of uplighting the ceiling and giving yourself light. So in the end, you're basically going to a downward facing light model, but I would also want to make sure that it was shrouded if you could see it from across the street and had hot spots. So it seems like that's a 2-part step, is getting a spec that's appropriate as a downlit spec. And then the other aspect would be the making sure that have a shrouding check as well to make sure that there was no hot spots. So I suppose the question is there, because it's here for final approval, is there a way of giving final approval without a particular spec or making an equivalent, comment of it? Because the 300K is easy enough to have as a requirement. And then the fact that we don't see it and it provides enough illumination and it has a sensor that that goes up only when there's motion and there's people, also seems like it's something that we can actually include as a condition of approval. So that's where it sort of seems to where we are. So
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair House.
I don't know if they have a consultant they need to involve to make that lighting change. If they were fine with saying, okay, we'll switch to the other fixture I'm suggesting, then I think we could give it a final approval today, just with some conditions. But if they need to consult an electrical engineer or something like that.
Gotcha. Why don't we turn to the applicant to see what their thoughts are on where this is going in terms of if that would work for them to have this or an equivalent. And this is a garage fixture, and so as long as we don't see it, I think that's going to be the main thing is hiding it and hiding the effect of it from view. So to the applicant, is that?
Yes, Chair Grumbine, I've consulted with my panel of experts, and we can certainly make that downlight only request, implement that and into the electrical engineering drawing, which we submit for plan check.
Thank you.
All right. Great. And thank you, Vice Chair House, also for helping to look at some potential solutions as an example.
Certainly.
We can always count on you for our lighting needs.
We need to sleep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion from the commission?
Mr. Chair.
And then Commissioner Drury.
Yeah, this has been really an engineering problem for many of us. I'm not an engineer. I'm not even really a good painter, but I'd try. So what I see is a real conflation of the applicants working with certain commissioners on this really important project for the city, especially for the El Pueblo Viejo part of the city, because this is going to become would it be sort of it'll be a model for how to do it right. And I think all the work that's been put into it and the many meetings we've had with this agendized is paying off. And I'm very proud of both the applicant and the commissioners who worked on this with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drury. Yeah, I'll second that notion, especially the hard work of the applicant to, for on a very difficult project. So, all right. So, any other discussion? And then, if not, does someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion, and I will even take a stab at the comments. So this will be a motion for final approval, and the conditions are: number one, the light acceptable because of the uplighting component, and that a suggested fixture from the same manufacturer that is downlight only would be acceptable, or an equal that does not have an uplight component. That sensors will be employed in the fixtures to dim or turn off the lighting when there's nobody in the drive aisle. That they will be 3000 K color temperature. And that they're the 30 watt or approximately 30 watt is was specified for the original fixture. As far as the W14 beams at both the south.
Sorry, Commissioner. Sorry, Vice Chair House. Could you also add the portion about the after installation, the shrouding to
yes.
be?
Sorry about that. Yeah. In addition, the light fixtures shall be reviewed after installation for visibility from the surrounding neighborhood, and as necessary, additional shrouds installed around to minimize visibility of the lighting sources. And so then I'll move on to the W14 beam and south. They shall be the same detail as at the ANAPA end, which is detail 4 on, what is the sheet number? Mr. Russell, can we scroll up a little bit so we can see what sheet number this is? Okay, on S5.0. So that would be the proper detail for the connect square column. Also on that detail 4 on S50, the 6x8 cantilever beams shall extend an additional 8 inches. Let's see, where do we go next? And that the plan shall clearly reflect that all columns are the same 14 by 14 size. What else was there?
There was also the beam intersecting on the whatever the north side, the beam intersecting the column as opposed to the girder, I should say, intersecting the column from the side as opposed to sitting on top as it's shown.
No, that's what I
can't remember which.
That's what I addressed on this sheet, that it should be the same detail on each end, same as the ANAPA end.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about the 8 inches? Did you already mention that going 8 inches past the
yes.
on the? Okay. Okay, sorry, I must have blanked out for the last one. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else?
Anyone else?
I'll second.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Motion by Vice Chair House, second by Commissioner Drury. Is that Commissioner Uli?
No, it's Lendick.
Oh, Commissioner Lendick. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to support the motion and vote for it, although I am not happy with the framing system I don't understand it in some situations, and I don't know that I am necessarily someone who is unfamiliar with framing systems, but I don't understand it, and I'm not sure I understand how it's going to work. I am disappointed that we have, in a number of instances, 10-foot cantilevers, and it's very untraditional from the standpoint of the secondary members. I just don't understand how some of this is being supported at all. And so I will vote for it, but I hope we don't have to see it again in some different shape once they start getting shop drawings and people question the engineers. So, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Landeck.
That's
And
all.
you probably also won't trust it, and you won't park up there. Especially not under that 10-foot cantilever. All right. Any other discussion? All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
All right, I'll start with Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lundvik,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Reluctantly, yes.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you to the applicant. Thank you for your hard work on this project again. And yeah, congratulations on your final approval.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. On to the final item, US 101
Chair-
underpass.
Chair, before you move on,
Oh, yeah.
do we need to
Oh, yeah.
formally make is this an appeal commentary
Yes,
as well?
thank you. I was just going to pop on. If I could ask Mr. Russell to, yes, go ahead. It's.
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
Okay. Maybe I thought the last one was the appealable.
think
So
they're both appealable.
both items are appealable
Okay.
actions.
Okay, sorry, for some reason I thought it wasn't. Okay. Okay, so, and this is an appealable action, and any appeal would go to the city council within 10 days, in calendar days. All right. Now for real, on to item 2.
And we have to make this one last to 9 o'clock.
Do your stretches. All right. US 101 underpass, city right of way between Ollie and Gutierrez Street. This is a continued item and this is for final approval. The number of vehicle lanes at the undercrossing beneath Highway 101 will be reduced by 1 through lane in each direction with a center buffer for emergency access. The project includes aesthetic and lighting enhancements, as well as removal of 4 non-specimen palm trees and 2 jacarandas. Final approval is requested. Project requires substantial conformance to the plans that were granted project design approval on September 2nd, 2020, which is when the project was last reviewed. All right. So, and for anyone who was not on that commission or who was on the commission but wasn't there and has not reviewed the tape or the recordings, please let us know. You'll be able to ask questions, but no comments or voting. All right. So with that, welcome to the applicant. Welcome. And do we have the meeting minutes from last time?
One moment, Chair Grumbine.
Okay. In the meantime, the applicant, if you want to introduce yourself, applicant.
Hello, I'm Jeff Shelton, architect with Bengal Engineering.
Good afternoon.
Philip Sudi, landscape architect.
So you say.
I recognize that voice.
Eric Goodall.
Nice to see you too, Steve.
Yeah, good to see you.
Actually, it's nice to see all of you.
And I'm Eric Goodall, the project manager for this with the city. And we also have Tom Conti. I think he's trying to get promoted to a panelist right now. He's the project manager for Bengal Engineering our primary consultant for the projects.
All right.
Meetings.
And we also have Ann Kale, lighting consultant. I don't see her, but she should be able to join. I can give her a call and find out what's going on.
Well, she might be she might just need to be promoted.
We can promote Anne.
Here she is.
Okay.
And I'd just like to remind the applicants that you are able to turn your webcam on when it's your turn to speak in the bottom left-hand corner. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Looks like Will is starting to share the presentation.
All right. Well, right now we're just going to go through the notes from the last motion, the meeting, and then we can go from there. You guys will have 15 minutes as usual to present your project. And yeah, so let's first go through the motion from last time. All right, if you can zoom in. Yeah. Mr. Russell. All right. If it lets you. Oh, okay. All right, so that should be good. All right, so the motion was for project design approval with the following comments and findings. 1, the commission finds the design exceptional and appreciates the artistic development. 2, the purple black color needs to be reviewed and should be blacker in color than blue or red. 3, study the lighting at 300K instead of 2,700K. Or 3,000, sorry. Okay. Study alternatives to the domed refractor. All right. At 5, provide lighting specifications and study so the commission can see proper illumination, especially under the underpass. Okay. Sorry. 6, regularize the geometry of the wrought iron guardrail and swag. All right. 7, the commission finds the compatibility analysis criteria generally have been met as follows. A, the project fully complies with all applicable city charter and municipal code requirements. The project design is consistent with the design guidelines applicable to the location within the city. B, the design of the project is compatible with the desirable architectural qualities, characteristics that are distinctive of Santa Barbara and of the particular neighborhood surrounding the project. C, the size, mass, bulk, height, and scale of the project are appropriate for its location and neighborhood. D, the design of the project is appropriately sensitive to adjacent landmarks or other nearby designated historic resources. E, the design of the project responds appropriately to established scenic public vistas. F, the project includes an appropriate amount of open space and landscaping. And the motion was by Mahan, the second was by House. It was 5-1-0. Uli opposed, jury was absent, motion carried. And Commissioner Uli opposed because he believes that the project is not consistent with the standards. The 10-day appeal period was announced. All right, so with that, why don't we hand it over to the applicant for your presentation, and also please make sure to address how you addressed the different comments from last time.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine and commissioners. It's been about 1.5 years since we last came to the commission. We spent that time addressing the specific comments regarding the rail color, the regularization of the geometry of the railing, as well as the lighting. We had done some significant analysis prior to the last meeting, but continue that after in regards to the minor comments. We also spent time meeting with the Art Advisory Committee and making sure that what we're proposing here is both aesthetic in the here and now, and also provides opportunities in the future for art to modify the space and enhance it as is applicable. So with that, we've now come to a good conclusion with the Art Advisory Committee, and we're back to present the modifications that were made to address the comments from before. So with that, I will hand it off to Jeff Shelton to go over how exactly we responded to those comments.
All right, thank you. Everybody hear me fine? Okay. All right, you had the 6 comments from the last meeting. We're going to address item number 2 and number 6, and then hand it off to lighting engineers and landscape architect for the rest of them. Just remind you, because this has a lot to do with the project, there's about 1,000-foot walk from Gutierrez to Yananali, and a lot of decisions think about that long walk. Let's go to the next slide. And there's the basically maybe 950 or something walk. Next slide, please. So the first thing is at each end, we are going to replace the sidewalks with the approved layout for a sidewalk as is at the California Hotel that you guys approved. So we're planning to just put that at both ends. Let's go to the next slide. So this slide is a nice one just to show the basic components we'll be talking about. That is the ironwork, which includes all your comments, the lighting, light fixtures, and then Ann will take care of all that. And then we'll see, here's where some of the landscape architecture is going. So you can always refer back to this slide if we need to. This one's showing the concrete that we showed you last time. It's the gray diagonal scored concrete with a concrete border, very durable, and there's slip issues if we use other materials. So we like this material for safety, and it looks good. Next item, please. This shows the basic components of the ironwork walkway. So we have, we have these 3 components, the small post, the medium post with the ball, and then the other post with the egg on the top. The 2 taller posts, of course, have lights that come down, floodlights that come down. This rhythm is important to this whole project. I'm calling it the A, B, A, C, A, B rhythm to help you get down that way and down and back up. We already went over this, but just reminding you it's been a while, as opposed to a ironwork like on the freeway past Rincon when there is no change at all. So this helps people walk through this project. So we're going to address these items you had 2 and 6 with this slide, and then we'll see how it works in the field on the following slides. So the first issue was the purple black, and we did make it blacker. So we went back, and this is called ink spot. And I think some people might have had some images of some of these kind of crazy purple things I have used right there on Garden Street. This is a black, basically black. It's cloudy or foggy or the sun's going down. It's definitely black. And then it.
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Shelton.
Yeah.
Was there a different, the slide that we're on correct for that in terms of the color? Was there a particular swatch or something that we're supposed to be looking at?
This is it right here. And you'll see it.
Okay, great. Okay.
With closer.
I wasn't sure if you were saying, okay.
Yeah, you'll see it with other renderings with close up. So, and we can send, of course, that ink spot to anybody. But so that, we just didn't want to go black. We want to add something so it has some depth to it. And I rarely use just black unless it's on like a small lamp or something. So this, and it complements the green that we're using that's on the other metal fixtures on the street. Anyway, we went blacker. So that was the first part. The second part was regularize the geometry. Now, Mr. Mahan had a comment about the flower itself. We went back and redid that. It was more freehand at the time. The last one you saw. We took these and all the petals are round now. The ends of the, are with a compass, round edges, but we kept them asymmetrical along their center line to keep them loose enough and organic enough. The key to this whole curtain is that it's more like cloth than a iron curtain. we're trying to keep the whole experience soft down as you descend to the 101 freeway. What else? Then another portion was I'll use the word regularized, but cleaned it up. That bottom skirt, it was more varied in sizes and length and more freehand. We kept it freehand, but we just cleaned it up, tidied it up. We want it to feel like cloth, but it's out of 1/4 inch steel. And then the placement of the flowers, another comment by Mr. Mahan, he asked us to explore the placement of the flowers. We had them all the same on every panel. We tried, he even suggested maybe fewer when you start and more at the end, stuff like that. We tried that, but it was too big of a distance for you to even notice that. It was almost like an academic, it didn't look right. You couldn't see it and feel it. So what we did is we intensified the perforations on one end of the panel, and there's fewer on the other. And then we are running the intense openings towards the A rhythm and the less intense towards the B and C rhythms. And so you're going to see later on how this really helps the pedestrian walk down through here. And it'll show shadows will change and all over the sidewalk as we keep walking down. So the comment maybe not what Mr. Mann was looking for, but we did run into this, what we think is a very helpful part of the changes. The swag had the ends. We cleaned up the ends. They were more loop, had loop-to-dos on them. They looped around a little more. Just cleaned it up. We wanted to keep it sagging though. We wanted to keep that soft sag to just feel a little more comfortable for people walking down the street. Let's go to the next slide. This shows you the dimensions if you want to come back and talk about these dimensions. But this is what we had last time. We're trying to stay, helping the rhythm. The B and the C have different heights. They all have different heights. And that's important as you look at the whole project and you'll see it later on drawings. Next. And here you start to see, well, the bottom elevation really starts to show what we're talking about with putting the highly perforated part of the panel towards the A post, and how we get a whole nother rhythm in here. So we just keep layering rhythms on here, which is going to help the pedestrian walk through it. On the upper right, you can see where the shadows will start to change during the day and even at night from lamps. So that, once again, is a layer we love putting back on the ground. This shows the details of the columns and balls and how they sit on top of their posts. Next, please. This shows the B post, the ball lamp post, and that's the bud not yet opened up here, and the leaves or the giant petals, let's say, are not formed as round as the final one. Also, just so there's a variation. Maybe people don't really notice, or maybe it's part of the experience, but it is a difference, and so it's not so monotonous going down. You can, and if you have questions with Ann, these are the floodlights we showed that are hidden up inside the petals. Next, please. And here's the main lamp, and this is the main light. This is a glow. We're getting our light from floods. This is a glow that when people who aren't from here or on Yananali and want to know how to get to downtown, this is sort of a pathway that says this is the way, and vice versa. It shows that it's not an accident. You got to go under the freeway. This helps guide people down to the columns below. Next. So these are columns, haven't changed, just refined. They're just a reminder, these, and we clarified, it's a Tuscan column. It's got a Tuscan emphasis. The chairman asked to see if we could do this, and I think it was a great ad. It has caused a lot of issues. I mean, they're more difficult to do, but we're thrilled about it. Just to remind you, those tiles change sizes each row going up to make this thing work. So it's quite a task, but ultimately I think it's going to be worth it. Just a reminder that as you enter a bridge, one column's 2 inches bigger in diameter than the field of columns. And then as you exit, you're back to the slightly fatter column. Small touches like that. We have a concrete base. And then Tuscan capitals, which are simpler, just to be true to that order. Let's go to the next one. And this is just different examples. This is the smaller column. If you recall, we got these to Tuscan, the order, and they're smaller, so there's less room to hide behind them also. It's sort of one of the requirements that we came up with, make it a friendlier place to be. Next one, please. This is what you've seen before, last couple of meetings. And, you know, like I said before, we added some black and whites in there to really help with the rest of it. Can we go to the next one? Here's the colors. You liked the colors before, and here is, for the record, I'm not sure how we do it now. Do we send you the actual tiles to the city? I'm not quite sure, but this is a photograph of them. And these were developed for this project to try to get the right brightness and earth tones to the colors. So these happen to be all California pottery experiments we were doing, and this is what we came up with. Next, please. So this is a view in the evening and at night, and we'll get to talk about the lighting. So I'll pass it on to Anne. And if you have any architectural questions, I'll be here.
Okay, so we start, and by the way, I'll make this quick. I know that, we have a time limit here. So here is our nighttime lighting. You can see the lighting is very soft. It's, we're looking to create wide pools of light so that we adequately illuminate the sidewalks and a little bit into the bike path. The pole light that you see is a dark sky compliant light fixture. The LEDs are at the top of the pole, the egg, if you will, and they shine down. Next slide, please. And you asked before about illumination calculations. Here we are showing the sidewalk, not under the overcrossing. And you can see that our average foot candles is 1.2 foot candles. So we are within the Santa Barbara recommendations of an average of 1 foot candle. And we do maintain within the 1 to 5 ratio between our brightest and our lowest illuminations levels across the sidewalk. You're looking down on the sidewalk there in the middle. Next slide. Now, there was discussion about 2700 versus 3000 Kelvin, and you can see we're showing 3000 Kelvin, and just barely to the left, you can see where we'd run into the 2700 is right in between the 2000 and the 3000, and it's in the warm white family, as is the 3000. As far as changing everything to 3000, we are recommending that we stay with the 2700. First and foremost, the city standard light source in their street lighting is high pressure sodium, which is a warm light source. So 2700 is going to be a closer match with the surrounding street lighting. The other thing is that if we continue on, next slide. We are inheriting these recessed ceiling lights plus the recessed dots of lights that you see at the tops of the walls. That is a city specified fixture, and it is not within this team's ability to change that fixture. And they want 2,700, but we are recommending that we go with 3,000 for these fixtures, and I'll tell you why. There was also discussion last time about the lens, and you can see a photograph of the lens there, and these are the existing lenses right now. And as I mentioned before, the last time we met, the lenses are in very good shape, and yes, they do look old and they look yellow here. But the city has told us that we did research having new lenses made. This mold has long since been lost. A new mold would have to be made. The lenses would be expensive, and it's an expense that the city simply said no. We want to keep the old lenses. But I do assure you that once the lenses go on the fixtures, we did mock this up, we looked at it during nighttime conditions, and the lenses look perfectly fine when they're illuminated. And since they're always illuminated, I think we're going to think that they're just fine. But yes, the comment was made before that the lenses are yellow. So if we start with a 3000K fixture as the recessed light, by the time it passes through this lens, we're going to be close to a 2700K. So we'll have a uniform color temperature. The other comment that was made was that 2700K light does tend to muddy the blues in the tiles. But the same thing or similar thing can be said about 3000K mudding yellows. So in the world of lighting, they're equal. It's just a matter of which preference do you give, your blue tiles or your yellow tiles. In truth, having looked at this for years and years and years, 27K, 30K, they're both great. So I am recommending that we stick with the 27K. Also 27 or high pressure sodium is mandated by the street lighting guidelines. So I just think it's closer to what the city is looking for. Next slide. And here we're talking about that. On the left-hand side of the middle photograph, you're seeing 3000K, and you can see that it's going a little bit, on the white side. The sodium that you're seeing is probably closer to 2000. So we would be considerably closer to the whiter light that you're seeing on the left-hand side. Next slide.
All right.
That's it for the lighting.
That's my cue. Does the commission really want to stay here till 9 o'clock? Because I can talk about landscape until at least 8 o'clock.
Well, 8:30.
Oh, no, you can't.
8:30? Okay. Yeah.
The beauty of Zoom is you can overpower people, kick them out, and you can't just cut you off.
Yeah, right.
We'll demote you. Go back.
So
all right.
I am going to try to be brief because I know that the commission's time is valuable. The landscape is being revised basically to refresh what is currently existing. It's also to replace trees that have failed to perform. Additionally, we are mitigating trees that's shown in this slide that are being relocated in response to the proposed roadway geometry. There is no loss of biomass occurring. We have the same number of trees. Next slide. It's irrigation. We're irrigating them. Next slide. Planting. I'm sorry. Next slide. Let's see. Our next slide, please. There we go. We are refreshing the understory vegetation. It has been selected to be more contextual to the landscape in the area. Vis-a-vis the parking lot 12 that is on the north side, or actually it would be on the west side. There are the same plant material that we are proposing in the raised planters for that reason. We definitely carefully considered the palette and studied the palette and the placement to help enhance, and I hate this word, celebrate this passage. We also tried really hard to diminish the, all due respect to previous designer, the oppressive existing conditions. And what I mean by that is the existing plant material rises well above the raised planters. So it emphasizes that height when you're walking along the sidewalk and that wall. We are trying to diminish that by providing trailing plants over the wall and smaller plants back in the back of the planters. Really trying to strive to make this more human scale. If you want to go to the next slide, that's continually exhibited. You know, low trailing plants, medium height plants in the background, and those medium height plants are aloe and bird of paradise, which are existing in the area. The trailing plants are lantana and blue chalk stick. If you want more information on those, I can provide that. So that is our objective for the landscape plan. I'm finished.
All right. Good, because I think you guys are almost out of time. All right.
We can go to the
Anything else?
next
Does
slide.
that conclude your?
We can go to the next slide.
Oh, yes, I'm finished, but presentation might not be finished, so.
Yeah.
All right.
We wrap it up. If we go to the next couple of slides. This just gives you an idea of some more views of it, and there'll be daytime and nighttime views. This is between the bridges. Go to the next one. Same view at night. Next. Nice vantage point here, looking north, northish. But here once again, here's where we start to get shadows and feel the whole experience the whole field.
And Jeff, I'm sorry, Jeff, if I interrupt you real quickly.
Yeah.
This is a good shot of what is intended for the landscaping. If you could see how the landscaping doesn't overarch or overachieve the height of that wall along the sidewalk. We're really trying to keep it low and more human scale. Thank you, Jeff.
I don't see any trailing plants there though.
Well, use your imagination.
Okay.
Let's go to the next slide. I think it's the last one. Yeah. Oh, there they are. Okay. And then here's an evening view of the same one going from Yananali up towards Gutierrez. So thank you for looking at all our changes. Hopefully, well, if you have questions, let us know.
And I'll
You
just
take
make
the plants in at night?
it's only a daytime planting. I'll just
They are
note-
not nocturnal. They're not nocturnal plants.
One final comment before we go to comment and questions from the committee or the commission. The trees that are in the sidewalk, they're going to be replaced in kind, not relocated. We looked at relocating, and due to the size of the trees, it's not really feasible, but they will be replaced in kind.
That is
right.
correct. We are replacing in kind. Not feasible to transplant when the root mass is significantly under the sidewalk already, and you can't capture that root mass and transplant. So we're giving it a new life and starting the clock.
We'll trust you on
that.
That concludes our
All right.
presentation.
All right, thank you. So now let's open public comment. Any member of the public wishing to comment on this item? please click on the raise your hand icon, and you have to unmute yourself, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak to the commission on this item.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine and commissioners. So at this time, I do see a raised hand. Oh, so it looks like they put their hand back down, but if any member of the public would like to speak on item 2, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to speak and I will call on you. All right, so Mary Love Thralls has raised their hand. I will go ahead and send you an unmute request and you should have 2 minutes to speak.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We can.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. I'm Mary Love Thralls, and I'm the vice chair of the City Arts Advisory Committee. So thank you for allowing my comments this afternoon. Beginning in July of 2021, the City Arts Advisory Committee has been engaged in discussions and heard presentations about the State Street underpass projects that were led by Jessica Grand, Joshua Haggart, Eric Goodall, and others. And the committee members at the time of these presentations and did discuss our concerns and shared suggestions with staff regarding infrastructure and adjacent space. And as you can imagine, being the Arts Advisory, our focus was on public art and mural considerations and things like sound installations, projections, sites for interactive and performance-based arts opportunities and such. A subcommittee was appointed comprised of myself, Kim Cochran, and Marja Yahavi to discuss issues and report back to the full committee, our full committee, for the next time we were to meet again to discuss the underpass project. We learned about the limitations and some of the restrictions involved in the project, such as nothing was allowed to be attached to any part of the overpass because of Caltrans restrictions and so forth. But lighting and safety issues were also of concern and were addressed within the 4 presentations that were made to us. We feel that the direction, if I can speak for the committee, the direction of the project is a positive one, and appreciate the consideration given to the arts as being an intrinsic component of a successful project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chair Grumbine and commissioners. So at this time, I don't see any more raised hands, and I did want to acknowledge that we received written correspondence from Francesca Gall. And with that, I'll turn it over back to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, thank you.
And part of my interruption, Chair Grumbine, yes, I just want to ask Mr. Russell to send Derek Bailey another request to be promoted. And Mr. Bailey, you'll receive a pop-up on your screen so he can answer any questions that you all might have. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, so let's go back to we'll close public comment and go back to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair.
Any questions? Vice Chair House.
I have a question for Ann Kale on those dome diffusers. It says they're going to be cleaned and refurbished, but are they water clear once they're clean, or do they have a yellowish tint?
They have a yellowish tint.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar to what they look like in that picture?
It's better looking than the photo.
Okay.
So, but you know, there might be a solvent that they can use to help clean them up a little bit more. But no, they're better looking in person, but they definitely have a yellowish tint to them.
That's really odd. Okay. I don't have any other questions, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know how they got there. It's
Yeah, I
just-
mean, dirt depreciation is one thing, but that should clean off pretty easily. Are they glass or are they polycarbonate?
It's polycarbonate, yeah.
Okay,
So yeah, no, maybe there is a way to clean them up more.
yeah. Huh.
All right. Sounds like a job for a goof off or whatever. All right. Other questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Lemon.
It's a curiosity question for the architect. The posts and the railing seem to have a intended physical connection. Are you going to put a piece of chain in there or something? I don't know what it might be. It's interesting.
I'm.
And
looking
are
at-
you referring to right there?
Yeah, right there. Yeah, interesting. Implied connection, but no physical connection.
Okay, correct. They're
This is-
connected
yeah.
in the three places down the post.
Yeah.
Those are, let's say, wild connections.
Mhm.
So in the field, in case, because we're on a slope here,
Yeah.
those will be welded connections, and the gap, there is a gap between the post, the top of the little post and the swag rail
Yeah.
of about 4 inches.
How wide is that top cap?
How wide's the top cap? I'd look at the plans. I think it's about maybe 10 inches, and it slopes down. It is curved.
No, I mean the
Ball?
flat bar on top of the drapery panels.
Oh, it's 6 inches wide, 1 inch thick.
Okay, so that's going to give it plenty of stiffness.
Yeah, it's gonna feel like it should next to cars and.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It just looks like there should be a chain connection or a cable connection between them, to support the drape almost. Curious.
Yeah, I guess there's a game being played there, isn't there? Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful project, and I would like to make some critical comments. I can't think of any, so I'm just very pleased.
That's just terrible.
I know.
All right.
Mr.
Anyone with
Chair?
critical comments? Commissioner Drury.
Yes, I do have a couple of questions. So that we're looking at that photo at night, that the ball in between the lamps, is that, it looks, very delicate. Is it, let's say, theft proof?
The ball, which ball?
Well, the lower one, the one that's 5'6".
Oh, that's steel. That's a steel ball welded on, 1 inch weld all the way around. It would take something.
But if
Yeah, I'm
we
just
see
I'm
one
worried
mounted
about the
here,
midnight
Commissioner
revelers.
Drury, we'll know who
No.
did it.
Well, I'm not going to take it, but people would probably try.
You heard that on TV.
Yeah.
He's not going to take it.
I'm not going to take it anymore.
No, it's-
And the other
it's-
thing is, are you worried at all about the skaters damaging the lower part of the columns with that concrete has a little bit of lip to it, I think.
Yeah.
And people like to skate off of lips. So is there a way to maybe make
Are
that?
you talking about, are you referencing like
exactly.
the bottom of the column here?
Yep. Right there.
That could be flush. Whatever's the safest, safest or the best protection. Hadn't thought about that being actual lip for skateboarder.
Not enough lip.
Well,
Not enough lip.
I can almost guarantee that guys will come down that ramp and try to go off those lips.
I just got a text from a skateboarder who said it's not enough lip. So.
Okay, well, I don't know.
They have an
Okay,
expert.
those
Yeah.
are my questions. Thank you.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right. Commissioner Butler.
while we're on the question about the capitals on top of the columns, there's a width there for the capital. I guess the question is there a sufficient surface area there for either roostings, nestings, or collecting detritus, et cetera? I don't know what the width is of the capital around the edge, but has that been considered?
Could we go to a closer picture or a drawing?
go back. We passed it up.
One more. There you go.
Okay. Here's a couple issues going on here. One, we have this beautiful bridge that comes down into the square, the vaults go into a square. So we're dealing with that. So, so that is an area we need to cover. We have roosting. There's no way to get into that area. By the way, there's a gap between the bridge and the column of 1 inch, which we are hiding. There is one now, and we're going to hide it again. But
actually, to sort of tie on to that question, because I took a look in Google just to understand a little more, remind myself what it was right now. So the conditions on the end of the bigger round column have round capitals like is shown here. And then what you're talking about is this is the area that protrudes the most because it comes off the rectangle or the whatever square rectangle of the bridge above. And are you proposing that the capitals are the same as what is there right now? Is that being yeah, because you are rebuilding the whole thing, right?
Yeah. No, the capitals are new. The capitals are new.
This capital, okay, that's what I figured.
And then the other ones are new also. And we matched them with the Doric, or the Tuscan order, excuse me, and as close as we could. And then we have a thing that you do not see in the Tuscan order, which is light coming down from the inside of that. So, you know, we are playing with that. So that has been what we've proposed all along. But can I say a pigeon's not going to end up there? I guess I can't say that. We're trying to reduce that as much
part of why I was asking that other question, is because the current condition is about this size right now. Is that correct?
Yes, it's the same
in terms
size.
of the column capitals, they look pretty much similar. So the current, I don't know if they have pigeon problems currently, but it is currently tested out in terms of whatever it is right now. So, and that might be a question for other staff members, if there is knowledge of pigeon issues right now with the current capitals.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair Howe.
I'm looking on Google Street View right now, and it does look pretty much the same size, and I do not see evidence of bird droppings below it.
All right, we have our pigeon expert on it too.
Yeah.
Skateboard experts and pigeon experts. Commissioner Butler, does that satisfy your question, or do you want more info?
No, I think that's sufficient. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair House.
I'm just wondering about the construction details of the widened sidewalk and all that sort of stuff. Who is preparing those plans and how are they approved? And I mean, there's a lot of details about pavement edge and stuff like that that we're not seeing. So if we're giving this a final approval, it would seem like those are details that should be reviewed, or is that a separate permit set?
Chair Grumby, Commissioner House, the civil details are designed by Bengal Engineering. The city's Public Works Department is responsible for review of those. They're designed to AASHTO Caltrans standards, and they're strictly engineering and safety related design details. Caltrans is also responsible for review of the sidewalk itself, as well as the safety shape adjacent to the roadway. And those are really elements that aren't up to aesthetic alterations, specifically that safety shape under the sidewalk adjacent to the roadway. If we make alterations to it, and we've addressed very minor, making an access panel in the side of that, and Caltrans has balked at all of those changes because it changes the design safety of those elements. And that makes Caltrans very nervous. They're remiss to approve anything that's different than standard.
Yeah, that's our Caltrans. The sidewalks, are they just natural gray concrete?
Yes.
Okay. No other questions?
Saw Jeff had a comment or a note
Anyone
there.
else? Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
I was
were
just
you
gonna
wanna
say,
add
if you go to the
something?
slide right before this, maybe. You can start to see, and there might be a better one, but Bengal Engineering cleaned this up so well. These are flagpole poles coming out with a control joint at them. And we did have brackets with bolts, et cetera, and I was so pleased to see that they made that connection disappear. So it's a beautiful, clean flagpole coming out of the concrete walkway. The details are done. They just don't show them in detail here.
If you're happy, I'm happy.
all right. Other questions? Okay, so I guess my question would be to the regularization question, and I think you answered it partly, but I want to bring it up as part of the question, next level questioning, because this sort of a somewhat similar thing happened with a different project on State Street with you, as you recall, not too long ago. I think this was last year, and it was the geometric sizing, making things more geometric. Came up, or something, some version of that as some of the comments, and less sort of fluid. And so, did you look at the curtain railing? Did you look at it in? I definitely appreciate the regularization of the end nodes. Did you look at it as an even more regularized or more geometric version that was not? There's still the freehand asymmetrical flowers, and then as well the tassels at the bottom, or the scalloped tassels. Did you look at one that was even more sort of regularized and rigid?
Yeah, we did. And that was the first thing we did, because that was the main comment to come out. And it was too regal, and it took away the softness. And could we have switched and gone back to that? It was our main concern was cleaning it up and keeping it soft, making the steel friendly. And it took on some Spanish regal ideas here that I thought were inappropriate at this situation of trying to make a comfortable walkway down under a cold, noisy freeway. So, I mean, it wasn't just the look, it was the whole feel of the swagging, almost fabric-like walkway separating cars and people. So yeah, we did look at it. We went to four-sided things, but they looked too much like a cross and didn't want to go step on toes, and so ended up with this five-sided toyon. Went back to this toyon flower. So yeah, we did, and I do patterns all the time, but this was a place that it seemed at some point then the swags don't work, and then this doesn't work. So to me,
Okay.
and it helped. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And one more question. The post sizes, or actually two more, well, but they're both related. And this is a good one to be on. So the post, sort of the base post, the shorter ones as well. Are they the same size, whatever they are, approximately 9 inches ish? If the sphere is 10 inches, I'm assuming that they're in the 8 or 9 realm in terms of a tube. And are they all the same at the base? So that's the first part.
Yeah, they're base, and they just keep growing up. The bases are the same, and then they change as they go
so
up.
basically this width is the same for both.
Yes. And their pipe sizes, so if it's 6-inch pipe, it's 7 inches on the outside. To verify that, the details have been submitted, but the
okay.
and there just is a telescoping pipes going up, which is
Gotcha.
actually
Okay.
hard to do, by the way, to find the right size pipes.
As it turns out. Okay, and then did you study, I'm assuming you did, but did you study different size spheres? And if so, why this one is sort of a larger lollipop? Or
well, larger because the other one was too small. I mean, it didn't carry the whole. If you look at this bottom elevation here, the small one looked like a mistake. So it was really trying to address what I've come back to, where this freeway, this concrete, and the cars making a lot of noise on State Street, like they speed through there. There's almost a comfort level of giving it a weight, even though it might have been just as strong, smaller, but it was proportions. And, I look at something, and when it works, I move on. So the little one didn't work. It was 4 inches at one point.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That answers all my questions. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
All right. Yes, Vice Chair House.
Just for the sake of asking, did you explore, instead of that round ball at the top of the ones without the light, to make it egg-shaped like the egg lanterns?
Yeah, we did.
Didn't like that either, huh?
I'm showing you what I like.
Yeah. Okay. All righty.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right. On to comments. Who wants to kick off?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Drury.
Well, I think it's a home run.
Go for it, Mr. Artist.
I think it's a home run. The palette reminds me, and some of the shapes remind me of the Beatles movie Yellow Submarine. One of the great. No, this is no joke. That was one of the great art movies ever made, and the way those columns look receding down into the lamplight is it's just wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Shelton. I'm a big fan of this project. And it sort of ties in visually when you come going toward the ocean. You come up to the railroad tracks, you see that museum across the track, which has much of the same kind of swooping curves and poetry and whimsy. I'm a big fan. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
All right. Vice Chair House.
I think Commissioner Drury is the walrus.
You never know.
You never know. Anyway, I will just comment on the lighting. I agree with him. It's a home run. I really like the project. I would still prefer 3,000, but we are working with one of the finest lighting designers in the land. So I will defer there. I'm especially concerned under the overpass of it being a little brighter feeling and not dim, especially if those dome refractors, can't be unyellowed. It would be nice to improve upon that. I would also just say that at the time that we were rewriting the lighting design guidelines, which was 10 years after the first effort, it was still the case that high intensity discharge lighting was still the norm around town. And what I wanted to avoid was the crazy quilt that you see in some other cities where one parking lot is high pressure sodium and another one is metal halide. So that's why we made that the norm, but it was not so much that we wanted it to be that color temperature. It's definitely a much more candlelight or incandescent color temperature than metal halide. But we also, at the time that we rewrote it, LEDs were just starting to get developed and have applicability for things. So we knew that was coming. So, personally, I, as one of the authors of that document, wouldn't have a problem with it being whiter. But as far as it's got a good color rendering index, then I will defer to you on your judgment for that. But I think it's going to look great.
All right. Who else wants to go?
I'll make, my comments. I agree with Mr. Drury. I think this is a spectacular design, and when it gets installed, it will be something that will be recognized throughout the country. I know it. So I look forward to it. I am a little hesitant to say that our Public Works Department and Caltrans can be left to their own discretion on what they do. And I would certainly like to see what is coming out from their work when it happens, because I just have a tendency to want to be safe on that kind of thing. So that's my only comment. The only thing I've heard from the public is one lady commenting that safety is of real concern to them. They don't want to walk down that arcade of columns and have someone pop out from behind a column. And it's so adequate lighting is really important, I think, to keep it safe for an individual and not in a crowd walking through there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lembeck. Other comments?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gordon.
I will simply echo the comments of my fellow commissioners. I think this is a home run. My only other comment is to say it's also a demonstration of what good urban design we can get when the city works with competent professionals. And I want to applaud the city for doing that.
All right.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Why, thank you.
Oh yeah, the landscape design was nice too.
Thank you, Steve.
It could use more vines.
Yeah, but leave them out at night.
More draping vines. All right. Well, I'll throw my 2 cents in. I might be I wouldn't call it dissenting voice, but I would want, I think that we should be pushing it a little stronger I think it's still on the edge of EPB guidelines. And I think there might be a little too much whimsy, to use our vocabulary, which we want whimsy, but this might be pushing the envelope a little too much. So I think it could be that one little notch more, a little more part of the Spanish colonial tradition, and it is definitely has one foot in there strongly, but I think there's some of the more freehand forms that aren't as appropriate. So I think it could be pushed a little further. So I know that I'm probably the lone voice in that, but because hearing some of the other commentators, but I have seen, I think that there's a lot of brilliant design in here. I especially like the way in which this last development has happened with the patterning. And I think that's going to be an incredibly powerful way of dividing up the space and giving rhythm to it. And I think that's amazing, and a lot of the other design work as well. I do feel that, like the previous project with the same talented architect, we saw slightly more, in my mind, appropriate for a Pueblo Viejo Spanish design get incorporated. So anyway, I might be the only one with that thought. So if there's anyone else that wants to comment, and then it sounds like we're moving towards a motion. So. All right, no other comments? Anyone want to take a shot at a motion?
Oh, I will. I have not heard anything from other commissioners that would require us to qualify our final approval. So I will make a motion for final approval. The finding that the project does substantially conform to the plans that were granted project approval to sign on September 2nd.
I will second that. Yep. I think Commissioner Drury beat me.
Beat you to
Yeah,
it.
you heard Commissioner Drury first. All right, and it's fitting the artist got it first. So motion by Commissioner Lenvick and second by Commissioner Drury. Under discussion. Discussion. All right. In that case, a roll call vote, please.
All right, thank you. I'll go ahead and start with Commissioner Lemvick,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
No.
Vice Chair House,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
and Chair Grumbine.
No.
All right, so.
And then Commissioner.
Yes.
Yeah, so, sorry, go ahead. The motion carries, right? And then Commissioner Uli, did you want to state your reason for no?
The same as last time. In my opinion, this project, as wonderful as it is and whimsical as it is, in my opinion, does not fit within the EPV guidelines.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Uli. And to echo his comments, I would agree with him, and I had hoped that from the comments from last time that it would at least what I would judge to be getting the other foot over enough to be within the EPV guidelines. But I don't see that as quite happening. So, all right. So the motion carries, and so the project receives final approval, and this is an appealable action within 10 days to City Council.
Mr. Chair?
So, yes,
Chair?
Commissioner Lembe.
I have a question for the architect. He may choose not to answer it, or the staff may tell me he should not answer it. At the State Street committee meeting earlier this week, a number of people commented that they feel that the Landmarks Commission is a big impediment to a project moving quickly through the process. I don't agree with that. I did not speak to it, but when I see a year and a half between our preliminary approval and this final approval, I would like to inquire whether or not Mr. Shelton felt that we were an impediment to the timely process of his project. Now, I say you may not want to answer that, and that's fine. The staff may say no as well.
You're in a safe zone. You already got final approval.
Yeah.
No, I thought this was all good discussions here, and everyone has concern about what's going on in this town. That's why you have your thing and why we do our thing. So I don't see that. I mean, there's other things that slow projects up. Plenty of things in this business, as you know.
Yeah.
But it's certainly not the review boards.
Thank you.
In my case.
Thank you.
I want to thank the commission for their volunteer time and their diligence in reviewing all projects. I appreciate it. Not just our project, all projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sitting. All right, and with that, I think we thank you all for your time, and it's nice that we actually ended early today.
Yeah. What are we going to do until 9?
Appreciate all the comments.
Yep, absolutely. Have a great evening. All right.